talk about a good pair of games to kick off what looked like an incredible weekend of NFL football. I expected all four of these games to be amazing. So far, the first two have delivered. 6 points separating two divisional round games. Home teams losing. It was a phenomenal pair of games. It'll be amazing to see if these two can match yesterday's. And I really think they're going to. I haven't slept much. I was up late last night, going over the tape, breaking over tape. Today, on this podcast, I'm going to cover Unflappable Joe Burrow versus the resilient Tennessee Titans. And there was so much to be grateful for both teams. As I said, football's an art, and the display that both teams gave really was phenomenal. I got so much respect for both teams. I know Titans fans, they've got to be miserable right now, unhappy. Expected, what are you going to do? Bengals fans have to be totally elated. But my hat goes off to everyone involved. Second game, Green Bay and San Fran, I'm going to cover later. Just really wanted to focus on this Titans-Bengals game to start it all off. So I had a bunch of keys going into this game. And one of the primary ones was Tannehill being on, not throwing the football with poor location, not making bad choices, not getting turnovers. And sadly, right off the bat, he threw a pick. And for me, I felt so bad for him. I felt bad for him at the end of the game, but at the midway point, I just felt so bad, like this guy's career is going to be in jeopardy as far as a starter. And he came back and he really led the team. He had two really amazing passes. I don't think it really balanced it out considering that last pick that he had, but I believe there was some saving grace. He's a good kid, good guy, and I did really feel bad for him. But the other part is I really didn't expect to see the pressure that the Titans were able to generate, the abuse that Burrow was going to experience. And it was really high-end abuse. It was part of the keys that I didn't put in there, but it's going to be a main key that I'm going to focus on. But my keys going into the game for the Titans were Titans stopping the run with their nickel. I had experienced that with the Miami Dolphins. A lot of Dolphins fans were like, why didn't we keep running? We had, 7 yards per carry, whatever. We had 49 yards on 7 carries with Duke. But what a lot of fans really didn't understand was that they were stopping the run with a nickel. And you break a couple of runs, but when they really committed to stopping the run, they were able to, on those critical downs, on that critical first down or critical, third and short or something, with that nickel. And so it really wasn't a matter of we should have ran more. We really couldn't in the critical situations. In this game, though, Titans didn't have as an easy path as they did with the Dolphins and with a lot of other teams. They ran a lot of nickel. Early on, they were able to stop, but they weren't able to do it long term. And then I had, running the football. Obviously, was a key. Was Derrick Henry going to be there? And he was. He came in and he played really good. I still didn't get the feel that he was the same. I don't think you could break your foot and not have the same training routine for that prolonged period of time and come out and be the same. It was unbelievable how he looked, but I felt like he was slightly diminished, slightly off. And then, obviously we talked about Tannehill's miscues, and we'll get into that later. And then for me, the keys for the Bengals were getting rack. I had noticed in a lot of the Titans games, watched a lot of the games, they did a lot of great coverage, a lot of masking with scheme, play calls, but they could get exposed by rack. There was missed tackles, and if a really athletic receiver would get the ball in the pockets of those zones, they could really do some damage. And, you saw a lot of that. And then I said, Bengals have to slow the run. And they were ranked 28th in the league, I think, in stopping the run. But DJ Reader is a guy, I had done some studies on the Bengals earlier in the season. This guy is a phenomenal talent. He really intrigued me. A lot of Bengals fans said, "Oh man, this guy's coming on. I'm really excited to do like a film study, big film study on him. He's just a gigantic dude who moves really well. I think he's such an exceptional player, and he played a big part. Bengals were kind of thin at tackle, so it was unbelievable what they were able to do to slow the run down. We'll get into that later too. A running ball on first down to buy time for the trio. And in the first half, it didn't go that way, but in the second half, it did, and it really put a lot of pressure on this Titans defense, among other things. So those were the keys. And, obviously, the first key I want to go over with some film here is Tannehill's miscues. And, right off the bat, you could see that was just a bad read, bad decision. I mean, it wasn't a bad throw, it was a bad decision. And there was this one. This was a heartbreaker. I mean, it's sort of on him, but not fully, but it's just bad. But then, he came back and he had a nice throw, and then he followed up with this, which was an amazing throw and catch. Really, I think it helped save his career in the eyes, but, he still heavily tarnished it. But then there was this. You could see underneath that tight end was open, and he just really made a bad read, and it hurts Tannehill. I felt so bad for him. I was happy to see Burrow win. I had vested interests in my emotions on both teams. And just Tannehill's such a nice guy, covered him. Like I said, his family reached out. I used to write for Finn's News, it's a little blog thing or whatever, and one of the family members had watched it. And just such nice people, and he was such a nice guy. And I hated to see, I didn't mind seeing him lose, but I hated to see him be the focus. But unfortunately, that's the NFL. It's a brutal game. And then, I had spoke of, we'll take a look at film here, of Chase's rack. I mean, what a great draft pick. Look at that explosion. And this was crazy. What bad leverage by that safety, a corner. Oh, but Chase is so fast. And in this critical play, and he got open. And really, how much more can you ask of a draft pick? I had done a study in the offseason about how difficult it is to get your value back with wide receivers in the top 10, especially in the first round. And so far, it's looking like there's a bunch of really good hits, but nothing. Chase tops the list. I mean, things are paying out over time. It might change, but what a year this kid had. He really is just such a key for Burrow and the Bengals. Fans got to be totally elated. And then, Mixon in the second half really came on right off the bat, but this run was it was a heartbreaker for the Tennessee Titans defense. It was a really nice run, overcommitted. And, I felt like they were getting worn out because time of possession was really starting to side as the game progressed. And it really got a big disparity towards the end of the game. And like I said, they were trying to stop him a lot with that nickel, which is very, very tough to do. And Bengals, credit, they really were able to get it. And then, they bounced back the Titans, and they had this really nice run. And then it was followed, unfortunately, by the Tannehill pick. But overall, the day, they weren't able to really run the football. If you take that run out of it, there was a couple of nice runs, but way too many stops. And part of that was the Bengals were focusing on the run. They felt like I got to go over the film, but Tannehill wasn't loosening up the run defense. And to their credit, with DJ Reader being a big piece, they were able to just dominate the line at times. And it was never more apparent than those strange two calls in the critical moments. I hated this call. It was a terrible call. And then they followed up with a terrible call after this. But on both of them, the Bengals defense really showed what they were about and stopped the run. To me, on that down, you run it on with, if you're going to do this, you do it in reverse. Because you have a third down run with Henry. And you can see, if he'd handed it off, it would have been a solid hit where he possibly could have drove forward or even gotten closer to create a quarterback sneak, which they wouldn't have been able to stop. But because they decided to do the trickery on third down, it put them even farther behind the sticks on fourth down. And I just didn't like those calls. They were, in my mind, they were terrible. They were terrible. If they had been reversed, I would understand. To me, it's really about handing that ball off to Henry on third down, getting as close as you can. So on that fourth down, you should do the quarterback sneak. I mean, I just think they overthought it. It's a shame, because that was a big. Didn't cripple the game, though, because they came back and, you bounced back and forth. To me, the Titans showed just an unflappable nature. Got to give them tons of credit. I mean, with all those picks, all that adversity they faced throughout the game, they kept coming back with big sacks, big stops. They really put themselves in the position of that last play, and that's the play that Tannehill has to either A, eat it and punt it, or throw it to that tight end. He was way too aggressive. I mean, if the location might have been better, a little bit down lower, but that high, that's like a recipe. And ball location's critical. So that I just felt really bad for the Titans, but the Bengals came through time and time again in many, many ways. Stopping the run, getting those picks, because the ball can hit your hands, but you still got to grab it. Mixon he didn't really have a lot of snaps, but he made them count, especially in the second half. But it all goes around Burrow. And this is like one of the reasons why, I did an off-season video, and I even made a music video of Joe Burrow because I really love this kid coming out of college. And to me, he was the top quarterback in the draft. I really wanted the Dolphins to get him. I didn't really, Tua because of the injury, and Herbert because of the personality issues. I really wasn't, focused on him. I was like, I hope we kind of pass on him because I'd rather pass than whiff. But Joe Burrow is always the guy that I knew would be great. Then I did an off-season study of him this year. I just fell in love with the kid more, with his movement skills. And I was just really concerned with his knee, how would he bounce back. The kid bounced back and had a phenomenal year. But I want to do a load of coverage on him through the season, but it was just too much covering all the teams that I cover, and really focusing on the Dolphins. So this offseason, I'm going to get into it. But this kid is so good. But you look at the stats, and we'll get into it later. If you just saw the stats, you'd be like, that's not good. But this is why stats without context are problematic. Kid was sacked 19 times under crazy amount of pressure, throwing out of 3 wide receiver sets and like long passes. These were like not just quick, hits. This offense is designed to create stuff over time. It's a little bit of deeper drops, being more aggressive. And when I looked at the stats last year, there was so much that popped out despite, his 5.5 average and all this other stuff. But look at the abuse this kid took. Unbelievable. And for him to stay patient, for him to survive, to him to even thrive through it. It was just, I have not seen this kind of abuse in, I don't know when. And for him just to not be, and this one was killer. This wasn't even a dead play and he got hit. I thought his knee was messed up. I'm really concerned long-term for this. They can't keep going like this. They got to help this kid out with the offensive line or, more structured play calls that allow him to stay safe, because this kid's career is going to be like, Achilles, really high, but, end short. But his ability to endure. And then there was like plays over here where he was, breaking out, a big third down run, picking it up, getting out of the pocket, standing strong. When you get hits like this, the brain starts getting scrambled. You start getting nervous. This kid is so special. Stats really didn't show it. But when you watch the game, you put it in context, it really shows this kid is, Bengal fans should be absolutely elated. A little fearful unless they get this offensive line fixed. They must add talent to this. They must adjust this offensive scheme a little bit to give this guy a little more, to free things up. I thought they should have run the ball a little bit more, and maybe it's because the offensive line can't cut it. You can't knock the results. They won. But this kid's a gem. a talent gem that needs to be taken care of just a little bit better. So that was really the biggest key that I input in, and it was the biggest story today. And despite the beatings that Burrow took, it really highlights how awesome this kid is. Burrow, 28 for 37, 348. Nice yards when you 0 for 1, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick. You're like, but what he was able to do to hang tough and to really get that little bit extra on big downs and keep the offense consistent, to buy time for this defense and eventually take the win in time of possession was unbelievable. Mixon, only 14 for 54 and 3.9, but there were some critical runs in it. It was like 2 or 3 just real critical runs. Chase, 5 of 6 for 149, for 109, sorry. This kid is so explosive. Some people wanted them to take Penei Sewell and upset about it. I understood that. That was my original belief. And then when I thought about it, I was like, you know what? I liked what they did with the offensive line, getting some talent later and getting Chase. That back-end talent they got in the second round and beyond is still in question. But you can't question Chase at all. This guy is amazing. And I don't see his production drop. I think it continues to expand. Higgins, 7 for 71. And then DJ Reader. Like I said, I want to do film study on this guy. I got to study this film, maybe just this one. Because Titans have a really good offensive line as far as run blocking. And he had 6 tackles, 3 sacks, and 3 tackles for loss, if I can call me on me. I do this. I write stuff down, and my handwriting sucks. So let me check to make sure it was the sacks. DJ Reader. That was somebody else. That was Simmons. You see, you got to hit that sound there. This is why my handwriting sucks. I put the wrong thing down. So Reader had 6 tackles and 2 tackles for loss. But when you see his presence in there, it was phenomenal. It was only topped by Simmons, who actually ended up having a 3 and a 3, which I'll get into in a minute. Man, glad I checked. But Reader was just unbelievable, soaking up tackles, being able to 1 gap, 2 gap, and really play an amazing piece to the puzzle. He might be like an MVP in many ways. When you look at, Tennessee Titans, Henry, 20 for 62, 1 TD, and 3.1. That's not going to cut it with this offense. And you got to give credit to the entire Bills defense. But again, Reader played a major part. Now, Donta Foreman, 4 for 66, 16.5. But a lot of that came for that 1 run. There was some nice chunk yards, but there was just too many losses and real short gains. Tannehill, 15 for 24 for 220, 1 TD. It was a beautiful pass, but those 3 picks, especially the one at the end. I mean, the first 2 could have been forgiven. That last one, though, was a backbreaker. A.J. Brown, 5 for 9, 142, 1 TD. Jones, 6 for 7, 62. And then here we go with my right stat over here. I'm a monkey sometimes. Jeffrey Simmons, man. This guy is a true beast. Reader is really, really good, but Simmons is like a stud, a superstar, and he's been showing it all year. He had 7 tackles. Let me confirm this here. Handwriting. I always sucked at handwriting. 8 tackles, 7 tackles, 1 assist, 3 sacks, and 3 tackles for loss. This guy was brutalizing the Bengals offensive line. And in some ways, they're not good in certain areas. In other ways, it's just Jeffrey Simmons is so good. This guy does amazing stuff. He's had a phenomenal, I can't remember if he was pro. He was definitely Pro Bowl, but I don't remember if he was all pro. But this guy is just unbelievable. What a great find. I mean, he was injured. They brought him in, let him sit for a while. There's little questions with it. What a steal. But when you look at the game stats, the key game stat to me that really broke the Titans back, aside from the 3 picks to 1 pick, was the time of possession. 33 minutes for the Bengals and 26 for the Titans. With their style of offense, this is unacceptable. You can't win. 9-minute differential. Yeah, 7-minute differential. That's a lot of time for the Titans defense to be on the field. And they got gassed. And you could feel it as the game wore on. And I think that's why Mixon really started seeing some more effect, and the pass play started opening up a lot more in the second half. Third down efficiency, 46%, which is pretty good. For the Bengals, 12% for the Titans. You can't win like this. And obviously, that 9 sacks really held them in the game, 9 sacks to 1. This is a phenomenal stat. But that 1 to 3, 1 to 3, so everything balanced out. That 9 sacks really held them into the game, but everything else just balanced it out and sunk it. Total yards, 345 to 353. I mean, what is that? 8-yard difference. But they needed a time of possession at least. So, going forward, there's some big questions for me for both teams. They're going to play KC and they're going to play the Bills. The Bengals will. And I'm a little concerned if they play the Bills. The Bengals play the Bills because they can get that pass rush. They got to lock this down in the offseason. They've got to spend money and get an upgrade on this offensive line because Joe Burrow can't handle this. He already had an injured throat this season, coming off a blown-out knee like you wouldn't believe. The Bengals organization has done such great stuff, but it would be all washed away if this kid's career is diminished and cut short because of this. They got to fix this. Very proud of the organization, very happy for the fans, but this thing has to be resolved. No, they got to do whatever it takes. And then looking at the Titans, they've got it all. This team has it all. Unfortunately, I really feel like Tannehill, he's done a good job for him. He's brought them so close, but it doesn't appear he's got what it takes to take him over the hump. And there's so many quarterbacks going to be out there, so many elite quarterbacks. Any of them would be excited to come to this team. I hate to say it because I really like Ryan Tannehill, but for Titans fans, a Titan organization, they really need to at least do diligence and look outside of Tannehill to other quarterbacks. An amazing game. Credit to both organizations. They had a phenomenal year. I feel bad for Titans fans, but you're so close. You got it all. You got the coach. You got the GM. Defensive pieces. You might lose a couple for free agency, but you can survive that. You've got a good offensive line. You got receiving talent. You can upgrade that a little bit. You got a running backs. It's that quarterback thing. That's going to be the final piece, but you can put it together. Bengals, congratulations. I know fans must be absolutely ecstatic. I'm proud for them. Big game coming up for them next week. Big off season for the Titans. This was an amazing game. I'm very grateful for both teams to put on a piece of artwork like this. So this is Curtis saying thank you for staying to the end. Please like, comment, subscribe. Comments mean the most. I love the comments. I love just talking football instead of political intrigue and conspiracy theories and all this other stuff. Just football, just the game of football is I love it. I thrive. I get energy off of it. Fortunately, with my Dolphins, a lot of other stuff instead of talking football. So I'll be really excited to hear from both Bengals fans and Titans fans about football. Subscribes and likes helps the Google overlords, keeps us in business. I like that too. So anyway, this is Curtis saying, get ready for some more great games today. Be well and catch you next time. Start building your own online sportsbook today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.